So our agenda for today is we're going to talk about work-based learning, kind of what that means. Some of you might already know. We're going to talk more about data, activity tracker. You might not care about it now, but in a minute, hopefully you'll figure out why that's so important. Computing classrooms, we're going to have one of our, I can't remember what Chris's title, he's EPS, Employment Placement Specialist, come in and talk to you guys about community classroom. We're talking about SMART goal setting, and then self-care, and then going around just giving things, like what is it that you guys are thankful for? And again, we'll do that all at the very end. And so, yeah. Okay, so the question is, how do I get the kids to behave with a sub while I'm gone? Before I answer... You
shouldn't be gone first, and you won't.
Never allowed to leave. Video cameras work, all that kind of stuff. Does anybody have any answers to that? Any of our former teachers or current teachers having success with that?
Well, sometimes the students are better when the sub is there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes. Can you repeat the question? How do I get the kids to behave?
How do I get my kids to behave with a substitute teacher?
You can prep them. I used to let them know if I wasn't going to be there, because sometimes the surprise when I wasn't there was more fun for them.
You can plan something for the sub that the sub can do. I mean, I know they're not experts in your field. Like, if I go in and sub your class, obviously I'm not going to teach them how to switch out a transmission or make a video game. But what can a sub do while they're there? Or is there something that the students have been working on that they can work on while you're gone?
And a plan and a backup plan.
Because sometimes you just leave like, oh, just have them watch a video. Well, if they don't have anything to do with that video, they're going to bug each other and get in trouble.
No, I agree with what David said. I let them know, I announce it the day before I'm leaving. They already know what their lesson is going to be, and I let them know that there is a sheet that she is going to rank them and how much of what I stole from you on my first Southern job, how they did, and if they do not behave well and I get a negative report, there will be consequences.
In the past, when I subbed, I heard of how some teachers, especially veteran teachers, were getting extra credit for those. Basically, as long as you did your work, you're getting extra credit. Other times, there'd be like some type of activity, like even though you may not be experts in, say, auto or video game design or anything, you could say, well, I was actually working with them on resumes or interviewing or something like that. So this way, if one of our CRY-ROP teachers are coming in to sub for you guys, that's something we could work on with them and help them with too. So that could be an assignment. That could be something to work on with them.
So I was just going to add the same thing. I think the two things are engagement for your sub and communication. If you only have a crossword puzzle for your kids and it takes them 10 minutes to do that, then what's the saying, idle hands, something, they're going to go stir crazy and they're going to start getting on their phones. They're going to start throwing stuff at each other and spinning chairs and all that stuff. So try to think of like, what can I have my students do that the sub can genuinely teach, that they can engage with them and do stuff with them. And so when the students leave, they say, I actually learned something today from this guest teacher, not the sub, but this guest teacher. And the other thing is communication, which is what I worked on when I would leave classes. I would have something that my subs could fill out and just let me know how the period went, because I wanted to connect with my students about that. If they did poorly, they would have a consequence for it. Sometimes it was like, okay, if you're gonna act like a child, then you guys get to write sentences. And it would be this really, really long sentence, and they'd have to write like 20 of them, like Bart Simpson days. But at the same time, if they did great, I would reward them. Like, hey, you know what? The last couple of minutes, we're gonna watch like a funny YouTube video or something like that. And so just gave the substitute teacher some authority when they're there, other than this is just the person filling in for the body of the day. You know, they need to have some sort of reason to respect and connect with that person. So, anything else? Good question.
I usually leave notes for every period. Like if I usually do handouts for that day, then no need for a computer or anything else.
Right.
So it's all stacked up for period, and then I'll write period 1, and then I'll leave a note. Like, this is my student that you probably need to watch, make sure he's okay, he uses the bathroom, whatnot. And hopefully they see it.
Yeah. Yes, and I would do that as well. I would leave a note on my desk. And granted, this can't happen if you don't plan it, but if I was gonna be out, I would leave a note on my desk. Thank you so much for filling in today. These are the key students for every period that you can go to ask questions about what we're doing, and I would, again, always count them. I think your name was mentioned a few times.
And if they did, I give them a little background. If I knew who the sub was gonna be, they'd know who was coming, that they were experienced, that they were very good, and I think they'd like them. And the one time that this happened, and I know my sixth period, they just are times 10. And I'm like, well, I don't know if she's gonna call security on them. She wrote in the note that sixth period was the best period. I was so excited. I brought them candy the next day. I said, well, hallelujah. You know, so I was totally surprised. He said, we were good, Miss. I was like, I know, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great question. So we're gonna skip ahead. Okay, so we're gonna talk to you guys about work-based learning. And does anybody know what that is or what that might sound like? Work-based learning. Yeah, Jeff.
I think it's just what it sounds like. I think examples of it would be like community classroom, internships. But I think it could also be anything like actually done in class that would emulate performing an actual job versus just like presentations or tests or just normal classroom activities.
Like externships or something?
So in lieu of those things, like actual performing, like I guess for automotive, like performing spark plug replacements.
Okay. Very good. Well, give the man a hand. So I don't have anything else to say. We're done together. No, exactly. That's exactly it. It's taking industry and putting it in your classroom. We're figuring out ways how your kids in your classroom can get to the industry. So I do have a short, less than a minute video I want to share with you guys.
Figuring out which careers are not a good fit is an important part of the career exploration process. Unfortunately, students often find out that their chosen career is not a good fit after they have completed an expensive and time-consuming education. To avoid wasting time and money, students should gain work experience related to their interests while they're still in high school. Work-based learning experiences, such as informational interviews, job shadowing, and apprenticeships, give students the opportunity to experience a career and make informed decisions. These experiences also help students learn workforce expectations and develop their academic and technical skills. In this module, you'll learn about the various types of work-based learning and how to help students gain work experience as they explore their career options.
So this is different types of work-based learning, and some of you are already doing some of this in your classroom. You just may not know what it's typically identified as. But the first one is to raise career awareness, learn about potential careers, and understand the roles of post-secondary education. How many of you knew exactly what you wanted to be when you were in junior high? Okay. How many of you knew exactly what you wanted to be when you were in high school? Some of you. How many of you getting out of high school that first year obtained exactly what you wanted as soon as you were done with high school? You? Awesome. So for the most part, a lot of us, we have these grandiose ideas of what we want to be, and sometimes what happens is we go out, we experience what we think it is that we want to be, and then we figure out like, oh, this isn't really what I thought it was. I can attest that when I first went to college, I went to college for a music degree because I loved music and I loved doing music, and then I got into my first like really hard music theory class. And I was like, this is just like math. I have been duped. I'm out. So at the same time, I had a really good speech teacher who said, you're really good in this class. Why don't you pursue a career in communication? And I'm like, what in the world would I do with communication? And he said, you can do anything with communication. You can work in any place, any industry. And then that's what I ended up getting my bachelor's in. But it took me not liking music or figuring out music isn't what I thought it was to get to what I ended up doing. And so that's one of the goals of work-based learning, is just to raise a awareness of the career. Maybe they're taking your class and they've been thinking about since they were 5 years old, I want to work on cars. And then they get into your class, they realize, I really don't like cars. It's better that they know that now than know it later down the road. Second one, career exploration is kind of the same thing of what we were talking about. And feel free to jump in on any of these.
Okay.
Career exploration, same thing. We want to encourage them to try out multiple things in our ROP classes. Those of you I think who are at Redlands, we're doing something where they're with one teacher half the year, and then the other half the year they're with a different teacher, and we're allowing them to do, this is for 9th graders, we're allowing them to do some sort of career exploration. We want to encourage that as well. Career preparation. How many of you have students that when they leave your class, you know, like they want to continue to doing what it is that you've taught them? So review something. Very cool. Robert, you're kind of a product of that. Can you talk to like how you went from being Bodner student to now you're...
Yeah, learned a lot, and Bodner just basically held my hand the whole step of the way, and went into his class not knowing what I wanted to do with life, and it kind of helped me out. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
And then from there, let me fly on my own, and then ended up coming back to become a teacher.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And then also career training, train for employment. So this is a lot of what we're doing in our classes is you guys are teaching them, this is what you're going to do if you do this as a career. You're teaching them some of the logistics of it, changing the oil, clearing a room, programming, sprites and all that kind of stuff. And you're having them actually do this career training. And in addition to this career training, we're also teaching them soft skills. You're teaching them how to write a resume, how to do mock interviews. You were just telling us how there's students that did mock interviews, and we've all had people in our family who have said like, man, I wish I could have done that when I was in high school. Because it's just such a valuable thing that these students get to have at that grade level. In fact, I can see my 7-year-old probably doing mock interviews in like next year. So that's kind of what work-based learning is. And then we're looking at some examples. Here are some benefits of what work-based learning is it connects the classroom to the real world. This is kind of where we have, again, like the community classroom thing that Christopher will talk to you about. Provides the opportunity for students to practice skills in real world scenarios. Have you guys done anything yet with your students to where you say, this is how it's going to actually be like if you do this as a job and go? Yeah, you want to share?
Yeah, so right now I have a group of 3 students. They're creating a logo for the district for their math competition that's coming up in March. And they're working with Denise, I can't remember her last name, she's the math lady. And so they're working with her, communicating by email back and forth. And today they submitted their final design logos. They had to submit 4. And they were in my class working way after the bell today. So they're actually getting real world experience, non-paid, but they're like really excited about it. Yeah. So it'll be all over the district stuff. That's cool. So they're excited.
That's right. That non-paid is real world experience too.
Right? Yeah, it is, absolutely.
But you gotta tell them,
yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
whether you like it or not,
sometimes you gotta
do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still looks good on a resume too.
Right, and that's what I tell them. Yeah, and they're doing amazing, working together as a team and collaborating with somebody that they didn't know before and getting that feedback from that person, and they hate it because they're like, they changed my logo. I'm like, but that's what's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. That's what happens in real world. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Very good. Anybody else do any like what you would consider real world stuff in your classes?
Friday, we're going to do some mock sales. We're doing the 7 steps of selling. And so they're going to do mock selling. They're going to have to sell a product. And so they have to know all the steps and doing so forth and all that. So that ought to be fun.
That's very good. So again, going back when I was in the class, we did a showcase twice a year. And I loved that showcase because not only was it an opportunity to show off what the students did, but they had a deadline. And I would say, you've got to get this project done because people are coming tomorrow. It wasn't just like Mr. McClung's going to give you a little bit of grace and I'll grade it later. It was, no, people are going to be here tomorrow and you have to get this thing done. And they got used to like, wow, this is really what it's like to do that. Allow students to explore potential careers without a financial investment. Again, going back to you might know some people or you yourself have spent thousands of dollars with some sort of career or degree or certificate and then realize I really don't need this. I'm not going to use it. Again, going back to my music degree, I spent a lot of money on music theory to now say like, So again, it kind of saves in that if they can try it out for free in your classroom now, then again, they may either decide that they love it or they may not, and that's will save them a lot. And again, kind of give a short plug. They're going to talk to you about articulations and whatnot, but this is awesome as well because they're able to take some of your classes that are college level classes and they're getting college credit and they don't have to pay for it right now. They're getting it for free. And that's just really neat. For employers, it creates a pool of skilled and motivated future employees. When they're doing those mock interviews, it's a great connection for them to have. And it's great for those employers who are involved in the mock interviews to kind of realize that there's kids out there I might actually hire one day. Reduces training and recruitment costs, increases employee retention, and then we're going to education, which increases college and career readiness. Kids are more thinking about their college, thinking about the career. What are they going to do? And they get to try those things out in your classes. Reduces absenteeism, reduces student dropout rates, and connects schools to the community. So, it's cool. Any questions?
Sweet. Okay. So, how do you share your class WL story? Thing is, you guys are doing a lot of great stuff. At the end of the year, and actually consistently throughout the year, we go to the board and we try to share all this great stuff you guys are doing. But if we're not aware of some of this stuff, then it gets lost. So how do you share it? Well, if you're inviting your PMs, your CRs, your CRSs, the staff, putting things on the calendar, if you let the program managers know, let David and I know, and this way we can also put that out there as well. Social media, you guys are doing some great stuff. A lot of you guys are sending me pictures of some of the cool stuff that's going on, and then we put that up on Facebook, Twitter. If you got a video, we'll put it on YouTube, whatever happens. And this way, our board members, the districts are seeing this stuff. The principals at your high schools are seeing this stuff, and we make sure we tag all the right people. If you have your own social media, tag us on it and we'll retweet or do whatever, just put all that stuff out there. We want to be able to share all these great things you guys are doing with your students. So this way, CRY-ROP is not the best kept secret anymore, you know? People keep saying, I didn't know you guys were over here. Yeah, we've been here. So for what, 40 years, 50 years?
40 plus.
Yeah, so we're here.
Okay, so everything happens in a vacuum. You're in your classroom, that's your, like, don't get me wrong, I was in the classroom for 10 years. And that was my silo, and that's where I lived. I didn't think about what happened on the outside. Well, I did, because I put a lot of students in internships, but it got very comfortable. And I didn't, even if I did share things that happened, like if my students got hired, it really didn't go anywhere. Yeah, they jot it down on my review, and that's it.
There was not a lot of social media to share it on at that point.
No, you didn't do that in those days. So even though it's great that I share it with my PM or my CR, that's great, but go to the next slide.
But if more than one person knows about it, if the group knows about it, if the organization knows about it, it makes a bigger impact, and we can share that with our stakeholders. That's why the collection of this data is so important.
No, that's it.
Okay, so how do we get there? You guys have seen the activity tracker, right? I've sent out
How many of you have seen
emails.
it?
How many of you guys have seen it?
Well, I saw
Are
an
aware of
email.
it?
Or how many of you have maybe seen an email about it?
About a link.
Okay, so
Yeah.
first we have
I saw the email.
Brittany and Jenny will not use it. If you're in a high school classroom, you won't.
Okay.
So, because they're at the adult level.
Oh,
And then you are online, so a lot of this stuff, the stuff that we put in there isn't.
They can share still, can't they?
Absolutely.
You'll see, when you see what the data is, the things that
They want the
are
numbers.
asked for, you'll see.
They want the numbers.
So we have this activity tracker that we've put together a while back, and Deidre came up with the idea of how can we track this stuff. I mean, the thing is sometimes you tell your program manager stuff, but they don't tell us, so we don't know. So, or sometimes we'll come across something that you guys did that was really cool, but we didn't know about it, and probably the board didn't know about it, and sometimes even your high school campus doesn't even know about it, you know?
Okay, so if you think about it like rain or snow, you might have a couple snowdrops here and there and everywhere, but it takes like one really big storm for it to accumulate, right? So you guys in your silos doing this great stuff out there is wonderful. But for us to let our districts know the value that we add or the experiences that we provide to their students, our students, we have to have a larger voice. Does that make sense? So they would always say these collective impact, and I'm like, what the hell's that? Collective impact, that was like a buzzword. And then when I was thinking about this, I'm like, that's exactly what it is, because all these people are out here doing great things and think, oh, I don't need to share it because as long as I'm doing a really good job, that's all that matters. But overall, it's really, if the organization's doing a really good job, then our organization will continue to get funding and we'll be able to apply for different grants and bring, and have a bigger impact on the students. So, I mean, I just want everybody to get that. Sorry. Yeah, I bet, buddy. Me and James go way back, sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry. All right, so what kind of data do we need in this activity tracker? Well, the thing is, sometimes you guys have guest speakers that come in, and maybe you invited a friend to come down as a guest speaker or somebody that you knew from industry, and they come down and they're speaking to the students, and that's awesome. But then we're not aware of it, so what if this guest speaker could have also helped you in an advisory setting? Or maybe they could be a future mock interviewer. Plus, if it's in the same industry as your other teachers, would they be interested in helping out your fellow teachers at the other campuses? So this is a great way for us to collect that information and share it with the board, with our stakeholders, with parents even, just to see that all these great things you guys are doing. You guys have somebody from Disney come in and talking to your students. Wow, that's great. Let's let everybody know about that. So what kind of data? Well, if your students are hired even, I mean, you could see this stuff here. And again, like Deidre said, you guys probably share this with your program managers, and this is great news, and hopefully, and they're sharing it with the board. But in the future, if we also needed them again, or if you needed them again, we can also help you with that at the same time. So this way we alleviate some of that stuff off you guys. Yeah.
And we don't know all those things that are going on every day in every classroom, and that's why we rely on you to put in these things throughout the year. Students who were hired, industry panelists, guest speakers, mock interviewers. Someone came in and they judged something, a mentor teacher or mentor adult or virtual student competitions. This is just for teachers. CRS's career readiness specialists put in other things. Middle school career readiness specialists put in other things as well too.
This is stuff that you brought in.
This is stuff we're looking for you from your classroom.
If the CRS brought you a guest speaker, that's on them to put it on their part of the tracker. But if you brought somebody in, that's your person. We'd like to know, and plus your program managers would love to know this stuff too. Especially when it comes down
So
to
for
getting
the,
here.
oh, sorry, for the students hired one, just so you know, that's who hired them. So if they get hired at McDonald's, then you would put the McDonald's in there.
Yeah.
If they don't know the manager's name, just try to get the person's last name, put Mr. or Mrs. Smith, whatever. But a lot of times teachers will go in there and put student information in there.
Yeah.
We don't want any student information in there at
This is
all.
the company.
This is just so we know, like, where are our students getting hired at? Like,
This
maybe
stuff-
they did a mock interview and they got picked up over here at, what's that place? Debbie always hires people, they get your prom outfits.
Men's Warehouse.
Men's Warehouse, thank you. She usually hires somebody from the mock interviews. So that would be, we would put that in there that Men's Warehouse hired.
So we maintain the Google Activity Tracker. We sent an email earlier this week because we've gotten a few months into the school year, and it's a good time to remind, oh, put stuff in so you're not trying to put it all in at the end of the year. And we said, we'll tell you more about it on Thursday as well too.
And
What's it used for? Go ahead.
well, also, when it comes down to our funding, you know, a lot of people, they hear CTE, they don't know what career technical education is all about. People hear about ROP, they think, well, every ROP is the same, isn't it? No, not really. And the thing is that in order for us to get that support and that funding, they need to hear about all these success stories and all the great things you guys are doing and the partners you guys are bringing to the table. So this definitely helps with any type of grant funding, especially when it comes to CTE and things for your classroom, especially updated technologies and so forth.
For
So,
example, without
big value.
supports current grant funding. CTIG currently $1.9 million. Well, there was a larger award
Like 3-4 years ago.
couple years ago. Without that CTIG funding, no laptop carts in
Yeah.
classroom and no
None.
maintenance of those laptop carts. So imagine going back to your classroom tomorrow and the laptop cart's gone. You know, a little bit of terror. The STEAM shops, the advanced manufacturing programs, without that CTIG funding, those classes don't exist. Those startup funds for those classes. So they have been a huge help for us in getting programs off the ground and keeping classrooms updated. This year, we will apply for even more CTIG funding. We'll
We
apply
just
for
sent it out
$3
today.
We
million.
just sent that out, yeah.
So, Melissa, pat on the back for that. Strong workforce. This year we will apply for up to $6 million in funding on that as well too.
Last year, we were awarded $4 million, and the entire grant was written on work-based learning, on getting students in internships. It was introducing middle school students to CTE. That was the entire $4 million grant. So there's certain things that money has to be spent on, and one of them is giving you guys help getting internships set up. And that's what he's going to talk about in a few minutes. I know you guys have already heard it, but back in the day, you didn't get any help. You wanted to put students in internships, you went out and you pounded the pavement, you found your sites, you got all the paperwork filled out, you got your packets ready. It was all on you. He's willing to get a book together, train you, talk to you about what kind of sites you want, go out there and look for them. I did all that. I did probably about 150 students a year. I would do 75 the first semester, 75 the second semester. So that $4 million, we really need to show the Strong Workforce Program that we have put our best foot forward in getting these experiences for students, because it's really all about the students. This year it's $6 million. I don't know exactly what they're writing it for. I know that she had mentioned focusing on specific programs, but I'm not sure that's the route that it's going to go. It hasn't been written yet.
So I believe you have a copy of this.
This is the steps and stages in a different format. What you need to put in, what you need to put in, what you need to put in. Deidre has created this QR code, which is on this piece of paper.
Or you have a short link.
If you ever wanted to scan that, put something in, it'll connect.
Because it's a Google form. You can do it on your phone.
Yeah.
So if I attended Gardner Holt a couple of months ago,
Did you get somebody from Garner Holt to come to your class?
no, they usually do in-house, all the
Okay.
presentations.
So let's say you went to Garner Holt for a field trip or something, or Jeffrey went on a field trip today.
He-
And let's say
okay.
he met somebody, and he spoke to that person to come talk to his class. That would be,
When they connect
If
it.
they come and talk to your
if they
class,
come, yeah.
then you would put it in. However, field trips, that's another, we collect information on field trips too, because we want everybody to know, like, where our students get to go, what experiences they've been able to have. The PSSs, because that has to go to board, the PSSs for each district collect all that information. So that's not, when you go on a field trip, that's not something you have to worry about. But if you get somebody to come in to guest speak from a field trip,
Yeah.
that's the person you would put in there.
So if you make a contact and you hold on to that contact and maybe they do you a favor and they come down, you put that in activity tracker. And that's a great thing about the field trips, or if you're going to advisories, is that you're networking, you're trying to hopefully get some future guest speakers or mock interviewers or whatever that's going to benefit your class and your students.
So if you want to tape this to your desk, put it on a binder at school, in a binder or something, so you have it at your desk, so you can just click on that. That's there for you and available. If you need help putting stuff in the activity tracker,
Let us know.
give James or myself a call, not a problem at all.
We've also gotten phone calls or emails where like, I forgot if I added this guy in
We can check.
for that date. We can check for you guys. Let us know. Sometimes you guys might say, well, I think a couple of days ago I might have put him in, but I'm not sure. Can you check and we can find all that stuff out. Any questions? All right,
I know we're time-wise, we're.
thank you.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're gonna have to. So take a break, go to the bathroom, there's one there, or they're outside, if you need something else to drink, eat all the food.
Okay, so I want to introduce you to one of my favorite people who has one of the best first names I've ever heard of. So Chris, go ahead, come on down. And what Chris is Christopher Junker is one of our employment placement specialists, and he's going to kind of speak with you about what he does, what he can offer you and your students. Sorry, I don't mean to whack you in the head here. As far as getting your students connected to work-based learning and community classroom and all that kind of stuff. So, have at it.
Thank you, sir. So I've already seen some of you actually at different collaboration meetings. So you might have seen me pop my head in. I've done different trainings for like youth mental health first aid, so different stuff like that. But then also just seeing you guys at collaboration meetings. There was also another Chris that used to be working here. So it was the Chris team, and then you have Christine, and then the other Chris. So fortunately, there's only one of me as of now in this position. But if not, yell Chris, and you'll probably get somebody to respond. But so does anybody know what community classroom is, or for those people that I've already spoken with, you get extra kudo points. What is community classroom, or have you heard of it before?
Is it like when the CMA students go and do internships over the summer?
Yes.
Like that?
Exactly. So it could be something like that. There's tons of different ways that you can implement a community classroom, and I don't want to add one more thing to your plate because you all have a lot going on right now, especially being integrated as a new teacher. But that's where, as they've already mentioned, I'm kind of your support system to help with said internships. They could take place during the summer. They could also take place during school time as well. I had no idea. I actually learned that. I didn't know Deidre was like an all-star with community classroom, 150 students a year. The thing is, we're just trying to get maybe 3 or 4, so the bar is set really low actually, compared to what she was doing back in the day. So meeting with her, also meeting with like David and James, even just talking to Chris literally as recent as today about different ways to implement community classroom. So each person here might have a different industry that they're working with. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend like I know what the industries are. That's where I want to come to meet you and talk to you about that a little bit more. Pick your guys' brains as far as what might be valuable, what might be a valuable component to your classroom for that. So we can get started. This is a tap thing or something? Fancy, all right. So community classroom is an opportunity for students to learn through work experience, real world experience. All right, so that's what we're here to focus on. We want to add value to your classes. So there's tons of different ways that this can add value to your classes. They're unpaid, but as somebody already mentioned, it's like that's also real world, right? Unpaid. When we've gone to different advisories, some of the thing, as far as getting into certain industries, the grind is having to be unpaid and getting this real world knowledge. And even just having the ability to be around some of these people that are the industry professionals where those kids can pick their brains, right? They can bring value to the class as well as far as different talking points. So let's say for good or bad reasons, where it's like, okay, this is the stuff we're learning in the classroom. How does this apply or not apply in real life? My wife's a nurse, and she says you learn all this book stuff, but then when it comes to implementation, it's going to be a little bit different in the real world, right? So that's where you can kind of create that dialogue from students. So it's not just coming from the teacher as well. So that's where over the weekend they might come back, or during the weekday, it's like, hey, what are some good things or bad things that happen at your work site these past shifts, let's say. Real world experience, we've already touched on this a little bit. We want to create life learning moments for all of your students, get stuff on their resume as well, and create value. Also helps boost enrollment numbers. So again, we keep trying to show our value. The county is trying to push different programs as far as creating the link between, classroom and also real world, once again, as far as doing different internships and things like this. They're trying to reinvent the wheel. We've been doing this. We've been doing this for a very long time. The difference being is back in the day, you guys didn't have the support. That's where I jump in to help you out as far as doing the legwork, doing the paperwork, finding even different sites. So like yesterday, I went over out to Bloomington, meeting with our veterinary assistant class teacher. You know, what are some different things that you're looking for? And she said, I get a lot of barriers or a lot of closed doors with this. You know, but that's why I want to meet with the teachers so I can figure out, okay, what's the best pitch? You know, because who would turn down free labor? You know, and sometimes it's a little bit hard working with minors, but reminding our potential employers, it's like we're sending our best students, right? And all it takes is one yes, and I'm willing to get all the no's to get to that one yes for you guys. Giving students a competitive advantage. It's no longer one of those things like you get a high school diploma, you can go out and get your forever job, right? Things are becoming a lot more competitive, a lot more internships. It's all about who you know and who likes you, right? So there's all these different things. So this can give them also an even earlier competitive advantage for getting into their industry. How does this benefit you all? We've already talked about some things as far as the classroom, but you can also get paid for this. Again, we don't necessarily have to start with the 75 per semester or anything like that. We could start with 3. Why 3? Because for every 3 students, you get paid 1 hour of your teacher rate. All right? So that's where I would even say if you're going to do 3, what if 1 student drops off, right? So try to shoot for like 4 or 5 of your good students doing these work internships. You also earn mileage, something else that was brought up as well. If you're working 10 months out of the year, you can earn a little bit more if you're working during the summer towards your retirement. So it's another perk. Some people don't want to work during summer. That's totally fine.
During the school year.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Some people don't want to work during the summer, but some people do too. You know, so it's kind of up to you as far as that. But you get 12 months for your retirement, so you can retire a little bit early, or do it during the year, so then that way your summers are your summers.
I don't think I got anything extra. I think I put something into another account. I don't know.
When I went to, what school was
Are
it?
you Cal Stirs?
I don't know what I am, to be
Cal
honest.
Stirs.
I'm PERS, I think.
I'm Stirs, so maybe that's the difference. I'm not sure.
And that's the thing, when I spoke to, I think it was Marcia, she said, because she's been doing it for a long time, when she met with people from her retirement, she's like, since she's working 12 months rather than 10 months, she was getting a little bit extra whatever.
Oh, that's good.
So that was another little talking point that Donna also said would be valuable. So again, EPS support, that's what I'm here for. I've worked a little bit on the after-school programs as far as for when your students graduate maybe, over with the workforce WEO programs. Now I'm over here with Strong Workforce, just meant to support you all. So again, I'm going to try to pick your brains as best as possible, send out emails, send out my contact information, trying to touch base if there's anything, either connections you already have, but you just need help getting the paperwork started, or again, if you have different ideas as far as what you want for student internships, but you're like, I don't know where to get started. That's where I'm here to help you out. And if I don't know the answer, then I can meet with all of our other lovely team that's helping me out as well. And that's the thing, each person's gonna have their own system. Like I learned one system from Deidre, you know, somebody who's done many students. And again, even when you're saying you start with like 20 students, if you just start with 3, just get your feet wet. You know, some people wanna hit the ground running and it's just like, I recommend just getting your feet wet, get in the flow, and then start building it up from there. And also, the purpose of boosting enrollment is so then that way you get other students talking. It's like, hey, I got a job out of this, or I got an internship out of this. You know, so then all of a sudden kids start talking and get more bought in. Not because adults are telling them, but because their peers are telling them, like, hey, this thing's legit. Like, if you get in this class, there's potential for an internship or a job at the end of this whole thing. So, thank you. All right, cool.
Thank you. We're gonna revisit those worksheets that you guys have real quick. The ones that say, how do you do work-based learning? So we can just kind of do them together if you want to do them together, but I just want you guys to have a clear idea of what kind of activities would fall into each of those boxes. So for the career awareness one, what are some activities, events, or things that might happen at your school or that you could do in class that would help students become more aware of different careers that are available to them?
Armed Forces. The Armed Forces at my school.
So they guest speak? Mm-hmm. So you could put guest speaker in that box, right? What else?
Or like a career fair, or something like that?
You could put career fair in there, yep. What about like a health and safety fair? I know we have the mental health fairs at some of the schools where we have the mental health pathways.
So that wouldn't fall under a career fair, it'd be separate?
Well, I'm thinking career fair is like where you have a bunch of different ones and it's like
Okay.
they're just promoting the careers. But if it's a health fair, it's more about, like the mental health ones, they talk
Okay.
more about the mental health stigma and all that. But it still exposes students to careers that they might not even know exist.
Okay.
So how about in your class, are you all only teaching them about one career? So what activities or assignments do you do that introduces them to more careers? Like the different opportunities. Because I mean, like if you work in healthcare, but you could work in billing in healthcare. You don't have to be a practitioner, right? You don't have, I mean, maybe you want to do sports medicine and not, I don't know, oncology, like who, you know. So there's a million different jobs in one career fair or career field. So are there any activities or assignments that you give your students to look at different careers?
Videos, like videos on different careers.
Okay, videos that introduce them to different careers, that can go on that list.
Does that stay in under awareness or does that go to exploration now?
It could be both. So I would put it under both.
I mean, my class is online, but I've been posting like fun facts or like the difference between an officer and a regular officer and a deputy sheriff, and knowing the difference and knowing what harbor patrol is compared to different aspects of law enforcement. And like crime scene investigators, there's also scientists. So I've been posting like fun facts every week about different.
So you could put it on there, like make announcements or put posters up. If you go over the content, like you're posting it online and you go over the content with them or ask them questions about it. So if you go down to career exploration, because I'm thinking like in my head, like career awareness is more for younger kids, but that's not necessarily true because we hold career fairs at all of our high schools. We have high school students that have no idea what they want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So what about career exploration? Where did you just go today?
Career fair.
You didn't go to a career fair? Where'd you go? Was it a career fair?
Yeah, it was a career opportunities fair, but yeah, it was held at the Auto Raceway at Pomona, the Pomona Auto Raceway.
Okay, so field trip?
Yeah, it was a field trip.
So did they hear about different careers?
Yeah, I mean, they're all obviously like automotive focused. But yeah, they did hear about careers. They heard several guest speakers, like 4 or 5 in a row, just explain like. There were different careers because one of them explained his experience with automotive. He started out as a technician, but he ended up editing magazines. Started his own magazine. And that was journalism. So they heard about, I guess, starting one career and using that to shift like into a different career path.
Isn't that what you guys did?
Start as a mechanic and then you can go into being a journalist or like for us like
From
become a
wherever
teacher,
you came to
know.
being a teacher, right?
Yeah. So I guess a good follow-up for them too would be like the idea of shifting career paths without it being so abrupt. You know, like it may sound like an abrupt change to go from a mechanic to a teacher, a mechanic to a journalist, but it's not so much so when it's, you know, it's in the same industry.
It's in the same industry, and if you ever trained somebody in your position as a tech, then you're taking those skills that you already had and you're transferring them.
Yeah.
Right? Has anybody had any of the career readiness specialists come in and do work employability skills? So, because some of them will come in and do employability presentations. You guys teach resumes, you guys teach cover letters. You're supposed to.
Yeah.
The mock interviews, all of those can go on there. I would say that those would fall under career preparation because you're actually focusing in on something specific and you're having them prepare those. As far as career exploration, if a lot of your course outlines state that you explore career options or that you research what's the next step? Like, do you teach your students how to get into the industry or do they need to go to college next? Any of those assignments that you do, if you bring in community colleges to talk to them or universities, those could go under career exploration or career preparation depending on what the focus of the presentation is. So for career preparation, it says applying learning through practical experiences. So basically, anything that you're doing that's hands-on with your students, if you're doing tire rotation, you're doing balancing, if, I don't know, something you did in your class that's specific. Hydraulics. You guys take blood pressure, right? You guys do coding. Do you do coding? I don't know.
Yep.
Okay. So anything that's specific like that, she talked about the project her students are working on for the other teacher, the other business class. That's a real life experience. I mean, they're getting feedback and they're learning like, oh, not everybody's going to love my work and I'm going to have to change it because they're going to pay me. Well, not really, but earn a grade for it, right? So that's something else you might consider if there's any way you could collaborate with core teachers to develop projects that integrates academic skills with the hands-on part. That would be another form of career preparation, because I feel like when we always go to law enforcement advisories, the one thing they always say is they can't write. They can't write reports. They can't communicate. Like that it's like we always hear that. So if you're having to teach your students how to write and you're like, I'm not an English teacher. Oh, hey, partner up with one of the English teachers and be like, can you help me make this really good project? And then if they agree to it, they can get a grade in their English class and a grade in your class for the same project, because it's a project that you've collaborated on. Okay? I know that linked learning pathways, like the one at Yucaipa, that model is built upon that idea. Is that their core teachers work with the CTE teachers to develop those capstone projects. So if you go through your course outline, you look at your key assignments, and you're like, okay, there's some stuff in here, like they have to write a 5-page report. Oh, what am I going to do with a 5-page report? I'm not an English teacher. I'm going to copy and paste that into Grammarly and see how many points I'm going to take off. I don't know. But if a student could see the value in English as related to law enforcement, automotive, video game design, that might make them understand that, hey, I need to do better in my English class. Like, I might think I'm never going to need this. I don't need to do math. Well, yeah, you probably do. So, but they don't see that. So it's like making that connection is really important. So the career preparation, a lot of that is what goes on in your class. For career training, that's more like the internships. If they get hired somewhere, or if they join the WIO, they get accepted over here into WIOA, they're actually in industry, whether it's volunteer work, whether it's unpaid internship or paid internship, that's more career training. Or if they even, and it's more specific to one career. Like I had a class called career planning, and I could put students anywhere because my class wasn't in a specific industry. So I would put them in retail, I could put them in food, I could put them in manufacturing, wherever, health, medical, wherever I could get them accepted. That I think would be more career preparation because it was more general, where the career training is more specific to your industry sector. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? Yes. Okay, so there's this thing, it's called SMART goals. I want all of you to think, how many of you have been observed by your program manager so far?
Like
Twice.
Yeah.
wow. Like a real observation or just popping?
Well, one where they give you feedback.
Probably not for me, right? Just
Yeah, probably not. Well, tips, feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the SMART goal that I want you guys to come up with has to do with your teaching. So if you think about when you were observed, for those of you who were, any of the feedback that they gave you, like something maybe you needed to work on or something you needed to change up, or maybe you had students that were in the back acting a fool, I want it to be something related to your teaching practice. So a SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and what's the last one? Thank you. Time. Keep going. Okay, so here's some of the ideas that I had come up with, because you might be like, I don't know, what am I going to do for my goal? Because I want it to be something that where we can work together to come up with strategies for you to use to work on them. And then when you come back in January and you implement some of them, we can kind of measure, are they working or are they not working? Did you need to tweak it, not tweak it? Do you need something else completely? Because I want you guys to see how much you're improving over the time that you're spending in the classroom. Because I don't feel like I had that at the end of the year. They just give you your evaluation, you're like, okay, but they don't tell you what the next step is. They might say, oh, you need to work on this. They don't tell me where to get help with that. They just say, oh, work on this. Well, so I would like you guys to identify those things. So these are some of the ones I came up with. If you need help with, you need to work on student engagement, technology integration, culminating projects are your key assignments. If you need help chunking on course material, like maybe you have an assignment that you give them and it's like huge and you see that your students are a little overwhelmed, it might be because you need to break it down into smaller pieces for them. Classroom management, station rotation, I think you're going to try to do that. Something
like 90% of that.
Something similar to that. Differentiating instruction, student voice, student choice. If you need help with organization, maybe like your classroom's an always hot mess. My desk was always like full of stuff. Assessment, like how do you assess how your students are doing and how do you make sure you are grading them on a even level? I don't know, that's not the right words, but you know, people hand stuff in and then you're like, okay. If it's a big project, like in fashion, we would do different projects. So if they had to do a poster, well, I can look at them and say, oh, this is a C and this is a D. But what if somebody came back and said, well, why did you give me that? I don't know. Because that's how I felt that day.
Because they didn't like you that day?
Yeah, you were being bad that day. So that's something else. Like if you need help with assessment because you feel like maybe you're using your personal opinion more than facts or measurements, then that might be something. Blended classroom or flipped classroom, those are two other things. Blended is you do part of it online, you do part of it in the classroom. Flipped is more you give them something to watch or an activity to do at home, and then when they come in the next day, they're ready to get right into the project. So let's say if, I don't know, can you give me an example for video editing design for like a flipped classroom?
You have them maybe work on like try not to use terminology, work on like the characters and stuff at home, and then they come in and you work on, put it together in class as a group.
So like they do the separate pieces at home, but then when they come in, they can put it all together?
With the other kids, yeah.
Or if you're going to have them do an interview, you might say, okay, we're going to come in and do practice interviews tomorrow, but you need to go home and watch this video tonight.
Right.
To see what what interviewing is all about and what you're going to be expected to do. They come in the next day, they interview, and then you can let them know. And you can probably tell who watched the video and who didn't.
Right.
That's kind of what a flipped classroom, it's like taking some of that work out of the classroom so you can do more of the fun stuff, the more of the hands-on stuff. Like that would probably work well in auto too, because if you're like, oh, we're gonna, I don't know, change tires or something, maybe they could watch a video on it, or maybe there's a diagram or something that they can study, and these are all the steps you're gonna demonstrate these steps tomorrow.
So the goal, a lot of times the goal of a flipped classroom is that you don't have to do all the lecturing for 45 minutes and then they get to do the project, is they get the lecturing part of it at home, and it can even be a video of you in it, but they watch it at home so that way when they get to class, they've got the whole period to actually do what it is that you're wanting them to do.
So then what was blended? I thought you said blended was online.
Blended is more like you give them assignments and stuff to do. Maybe it's not specifically related to what they're going to do in class. It's just part of the course, but part of it's online, part of it's in the classroom.
Oh, okay.
The other one is more like you just give them information to take care of at home, and then you bring it to the classroom, and then they get to use it, and you get to see how they use it, if they know how to use it. Okay, so the SMART goals, we just kind of went over that. This is just a sample I came up with. You can give them their worksheets.
Sure.
So for specific, this one was on integrating technology in the classroom, and I just made one up because I was trying to think like what would be an easy one to do. So how many of you use computers in your classroom every single day? Okay. And what do they do with it? Well, you guys, that doesn't count for you guys. What do they do on their computers?
Research.
Research?
A lot of research. Google Classroom.
Google Classroom?
Design research.
Design. Anybody?
Projects.
Yeah.
What do they do for the project though? Is it just research, typing stuff
Well,
out?
they're going to research it, but sometimes I have them do Google Slides to do their presentation. They load videos in it to show or demonstrate what they've researched and what the project is.
Okay. So the goal that I've made up is just to use it more often. It says, I currently only use my computers twice a week. Okay? I didn't have computers. It was the whole show when I was in the classroom. How can I make this measurable? Like, how much do I want to increase the use of computers in my classroom? How much do I want to increase technology? So I want to learn and implement 4 technology integration strategies in my classroom with a minimum of 1 tech component for each lesson. So that means the students would use their computer for something at least once a day, whether that's to take notes on the content, whether that's to create a short video and upload it, if it's even for a, what do you call it when they walk out of the room?
Exit ticket.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what it was called. If you're going to do an exit ticket, or if you did a pre-survey to see what kind of knowledge they had about the topic you're going to talk about, it could be any of those things. So I want to embed 1 tech component per lesson. So that's my measurable part. Achievable, I need to make sure all my computers work. I need to research and identify the 4 strategies that I want to try out in my classroom. And I need to plan the new lessons and execute the lesson plan. So is it relevant and realistic? Well, it's relevant because I want to be able to use the technology to increase their engagement. Because if I'm just standing here talking to you guys like I do all day, then they would fall asleep. Differentiate instruction. I want to give them the opportunity to demonstrate their competencies in different ways. Give them choices. The more choice they have, the more voice, the more interested they are in the topic. And hopefully it will improve student outcomes. Okay? So is it time bound? These are all the things that I want to do, and this is the timeline that I'm going to do them in. I'm going to research and identify the strategies by the end of November. I'm going to make sure all my computers are inspected and repaired by the end of November. I'm going to develop 1 lesson plan with a tech strategy. Might just be one of them because I want to see how it works, is students interested in it, whatever. By the 2nd of December, I'm going to reflect on the outcome. You know, did it work well? It didn't work well. Maybe some of the students were engaged, or maybe I didn't understand how the application worked, so I needed to make some changes, and then I would repeat it again. I would embed that same strategy in the next lesson and make some changes to see if it worked any better. Okay? And then after that, I would develop more lessons using the additional strategies. And in January, after I've been embedding 1 tech component for, let's say, 2 full weeks, I would look at the students' grades or their assessments or the activities we've been doing. I would check their attendance. I would see if their scores have come up. And that would help me see if embedding the technology in my class is actually having any improvement on my students. Does that make sense? Or maybe some assignments were really good and they did really well, and then other assignments they were like, oh, they didn't do very well at all. So maybe I didn't use that technology appropriately. Okay. So the worksheet you guys have is this. I want you to think about, what do you want your 1 goal to be? Like, if you think there's 1 thing you need to work on in the classroom, what is it? And then you're going to specifically state what it is that you want to achieve in as much detail as possible. And you're I'm going to send this out, but we're on the roller coaster. Just so you know, you've hit the disillusionment, and you should start to rebound and rejuvenate after the holidays. So just, even if you're feeling really crappy, just keep in mind that this is the bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. Okay? Did that sound bad? And please, if there's food back there, put it on a plate, take it with you, because I'm going to throw it away. If somebody wants the entire pumpkin pie, take it with you. I don't really like it that well. I'm not much of a pumpkin pie. But thanks for coming.
That sweet potato pie.
Thank you.